Welcome to this deep dive where you are getting a tailored look at a really fascinating strategy for financial success. We are pulling insights today from the channel Ivan Invests. And our mission is to explore this concept of stealth wealth, or getting rich in silence.
Right, which is completely counterintuitive to everything we are taught by, modern culture.
Oh, totally. Like when you think about someone getting into peak physical shape, you generally see two very different approaches out in the wild. On one hand, you have the person who posts like a meticulously lit gym selfie every single day.
Oh yeah, with the brand new workout gear and those incredibly long captions about the grind.
Yes, exactly. And they treat the entire process as a performance for an audience. But I mean, more often than not, they hit a plateau and end up with pretty average results.
Because the performance itself exhausts your capital. That's the guiding thesis here. The performance costs energy, but the silence compounds.
Right. Because on the other hand, you have the person who just quietly shows up at 5 a.m. every day for 2 years, no posts, no announcements, and suddenly they are absolutely shredded.
And money works in exactly the same way. The sources break down exactly why performing success for others is literally bankrupting people.
Yeah, and we're going to cover 8 specific silent moves that build genuine wealth. So let's look at the external social pressures first, because those destroy wealth before it even has a chance to catch a spark.
They really do. The source material illustrates this with a brilliant contrast between two guys. Let's just call them Peter and Richard.
Okay, poor Peter and Richard. Yeah.
Exactly. So both of them experience the exact same financial windfall. They each get a $20,000 bonus at work.
Which is huge. So Peter, understandably, is thrilled, and he shares this news at a family dinner.
And the psychological shift in the room is almost instantaneous. Because by disclosing that number, he unknowingly creates a mental ledger in the minds of everyone he knows.
Wait, what do you mean by a mental ledger?
Well, within a week, his cousin is aggressively pitching him a cryptocurrency venture. His brother-in-law is leveraging family loyalty to get Peter to co-sign a car loan.
Oh man, the sudden emergencies.
Right. Other relatives are suddenly experiencing these emergencies that conveniently only Peter can solve.
So Peter spends his entire bonus managing guilt trips. He's just trying to navigate other people's expectations.
And 6 months later, that $20,000 is entirely gone. And ironically, his relationships are worse off because he eventually had to hit a wall and start saying no anyway.
It's like broadcasting his financial win was like leaving a giant jar of honey open in the middle of the woods. Like he was just proud of the honey, but all he did was attract bears.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Because keeping quiet in these situations, it's not about being paranoid or secretive. It's about removing the social negotiation from your money.
Yeah, because when people know what you have, they automatically make assumptions about what you should spend.
Exactly. You get a promotion, everyone expects you to pick up the check. And what's fascinating here is the psychology of environment design. Your brain starts making spending decisions based on managing optics.
Just to avoid social friction.
Right, rather than optimizing your own financial returns.
So let's look at Richard. Move 1 is keep expenses and wins private. Richard takes the completely opposite approach. He gets the exact same $20,000 bonus, but tells absolutely no one.
No drama, no shift in family dynamics, no external expectations.
He just quietly takes the entire amount and drops it into a diversified index fund.
And for anyone who might be intimidated by that terminology, an index fund isn't some complex Wall Street gamble. It's essentially a single basket holding tiny pieces of hundreds of the most successful companies in the world.
So you own a microscopic fraction of all their profits.
Right. Richard buys 18,000 shares, and he just leaves them alone. As those companies grow and pay out dividends, that money is automatically reinvested.
It creates this snowball effect. And 5 years later, those shares have quietly doubled. And nobody in his life even knew the initial seed money existed.
Which is incredible. But the problem with Peter's approach goes way beyond just family members asking for handouts. It bleeds into his daily environment.
Which brings us to move 2, associate with people who make you richer. Because the sources point out that your social circle dictates your daily spending in ways you don't even consciously register.
This is where willpower becomes a terrible long-term strategy. You simply cannot consistently out-willpower your environment.
Because we're wired for social survival, right?
Exactly. Your peer group sets your brain's baseline for what is normal, whether that is financing new cars or maxing out a retirement account.
And the numbers attached to this are wild. So Peter's friend group valued bottle service and constant shopping trips,
Yeah, he was dropping $800 a month, just keeping up with the baseline activities of his peers.
leaving him with a miserable 3% savings rate.
3%. While Richard, on the other hand, deliberately shifted his environment.
Right, he shifted to friends who hiked and cooked at home and talked about real estate.
And because the baseline activity of his new tribe didn't require a cover charge, his social spending dropped to $200 a month.
Boosting his savings rate to 18%.
Right. Same income, completely different financial outcomes, driven purely by the normalized behavior of their environments. I challenge anyone listening to just audit the 5 people you spend the most time with.
So true. But okay, let's say you manage to hide your income and you curate this highly frugal friend group. You are still left alone in a room with your own ego.
Yes, the internal habits. How you actually treat your money when nobody is looking.
Which brings us to move 3, live below your means and bank every raise. The deadliest trap here is lifestyle inflation.
We see this perfectly when both Peter and Richard get promoted from $60,000 to $80,000 a year.
Right. Peter immediately upgrades his baseline existence. He moves into a nicer apartment, which is an extra $600 a month.
He trades in his car for a newer model, so there's another $300 a month. And a year later, despite making 20% more top-line income, he still only has $2,000 saved.
He is stuck in the exact same paycheck-to-paycheck loop, just with slightly nicer upholstery.
Exactly. While Richard kept his expenses locked at $50,000 and aggressively banked the $30,000 difference.
He saved $90,000 in 3 years. But okay, let's unpack this for a second. Doesn't living below your means just mean eating ramen and being miserable?
I hear that all the time. People picture this life of absolute deprivation.
Yeah, like, isn't the point of working hard to enjoy your life rather than living like a broke college student
A
forever?
common reaction, but it completely misunderstands what that saved money represents. Living below your means isn't deprivation, it's buying options.
Buying options, what do you mean by that?
The gap between your earning and spending is your freedom fund. Think about the geometry of your budget. If your fixed costs rent, car insurance, minimum debt payments take up 80% of your income, you are trapped.
You can't negotiate for a raise because you're terrified of getting fired.
Right, you can't walk away from a toxic boss. You have no leverage. But if you keep your lifestyle in check and those fixed costs only consume 45% of your income, you have massive breathing room.
You can weather an economic downturn or pivot careers.
You aren't hoarding cash. You are hoarding leverage.
That is a huge reframe, and it leads right into move 4, invest in quality things you use daily. Because we often surrender that leverage by buying things that signal the exact opposite of wealth.
Yes, the paradox of quality.
Yes.
Status symbols are often just visible poverty.
Visible poverty, I love that term.
Well, look at the math. You can buy a $30 pair of shoes that falls apart in 6 months, or a $120 pair that lasts 5 years.
The cheaper shoes actually cost more over a 5-year timeline.
But you need that freedom fund we just talked about to afford the upfront cost of true quality.
And it gets more extreme with big purchases. Peter spent $3,000 on a designer jacket he wore maybe 5 times.
Which he probably financed at 19% interest on a credit card.
Oh, easily.
So that $3,000 jacket actually drains $5,000 or $6,000 from his future earnings. That is visible poverty. You are paying a premium to look like you have money you don't possess.
Well, Richard spent $3,000 on a professional development course that tripled his freelance rate.
Invisible wealth.
Exactly. Invisible wealth. Nobody on the street sees the course you took or the high-quality mattress you bought for better sleep. But you feel the compounding effects every day.
And once you free up that capital by ignoring cheap status symbols, you move to the next logical step.
Building the quiet engine, which is move 5. Diversify your income streams quietly.
A single income source is inherently fragile. If your industry has a downturn, that single point of failure wipes you out.
So Richard made $65,000 full-time, but quietly started freelance writing for an extra $1,000 a month.
And the secrecy is the key there. He didn't tell his coworkers or post motivational hustle quotes online.
Because if you broadcast it, the social pressure starts. The celebratory dinners, the friends wanting to go out.
Right. By keeping it silent, he funneled that $12,000 a year into index funds, growing his portfolio by $60,000 over 5 years without inflating his lifestyle at all.
While Peter just watched Netflix and blew his occasional gig money on clothes, which really highlights move 6 invest in assets, not liabilities.
This is the ultimate $45,000 choice. Both guys have $45,000 purchasing power.
Right. And Peter chooses to buy a luxury car, costing him $650 a month, plus insurance.
He bought a massive liability.
It's the leaky bucket versus the well. Liabilities, like that luxury car, are a leaky bucket. You buy this giant block of ice, and the moment you drive it off the lot, it starts melting.
And after 5 years of bleeding his cash flow dry, Peter is left with a puddle of water worth maybe $15,000.
Exactly. But assets are digging a well that provides a constant flow of water. Richard took his $45,000 and bought a rental property generating $800 a month.
Resulting in $48,000 in rent over 5 years, plus an appreciating asset.
So how do you stop yourself from buying the melting ice?
The sources introduce a powerful critical thinking rule here. Before any purchase over $500, ask yourself, will this pay me back?
Will it generate income or save time?
Right. And then you sleep on it for a full week. Most liabilities constantly disguise themselves as success symbols. Giving your brain a week to process removes that emotional dopamine high of being in the store.
Okay, so having extra income streams and knowing what assets to buy is great theory. But we have to talk about creating foolproof systems, which is move 7, automate everything.
Because if we connect this to the bigger picture, willpower relies on decision fatigue. By the end of the month, your cognitive battery is empty.
And Peter tried to save whatever was left at the end of the month.
Which was always zero.
Always zero. But Richard automated transfers the day after payday. $400 to high-yield savings, $500 to a brokerage.
And $200 to an HSA, a health series account.
Oh, I love HSAs. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a financial unicorn. Triple tax advantaged. No taxes going in, no taxes on growth, and no taxes when you pull it out for medical expenses.
It's brilliant. And by automating all of this, Richard completely removed decision fatigue. He didn't have to debate every month if he could afford to invest. The wealth simply built in the background.
And then he tracked it, which is move 8, track your net worth monthly, assets minus liabilities.
Richard watched his net worth grow from negative $40,000 to positive $200,000 over 8 years.
The upward trend motivated him, while Peter never tracked anything and spent 8 years treading water. But wait, what does this mean for the listener who hates spreadsheets? How does merely looking at a number actually change your behavior?
Because what gets measured gets managed. When you track your net worth and see that number inching up, it releases dopamine.
It proves the sacrifice is working.
Exactly. And when you see the number stagnate or drop, you cannot ignore it. You automatically investigate your spending. You can't fix a leak in a pipe if you refuse to look at the water meter.
That is such a good point. So to summarize, true wealth isn't loud. It's built by the people who start now, stay consistent, ignore the performance of success, and let the math work in silence.
It really is. But, analyzing the source material does leave us with a final, really provocative concept to mull over.
Oh, what's that?
Well, the sources heavily champion absolute financial silence, right? To avoid friction and protect your capital.
Right.
But this raises an important question. If the smartest wealth builders operate in complete secrecy, how do we educate the next generation? Or marginalized groups?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
How do we teach these wealth-building mechanics without creating an unhealthy taboo around discussing money altogether?
That is a massive dilemma. If we don't talk about it, the only people talking about money are scammers.
Exactly. So the question is, can we be quiet with our wealth, but loud with our knowledge?
Quiet with our wealth, loud with our knowledge. I absolutely love that. Separate the ego of the net worth from the generosity of the mechanics.
Precisely.
Well, thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. My challenge to you is to pick just one strategy from today's session to implement this week. Just one.
Yeah, automate one transfer or calculate your net worth for the first time.
Because true wealth isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It's about quietly doing the reps where no one can see. Let the silence compound.